We're blue.
Blue.
We're white. We're
fucking
fucking dynamite. White
Vancouver.
caps. White
Vancouver.
caps.
We're blue.
Blue.
We're
We're
white.
white.
We're
We're
fucking
fucking
dynamite.
dynamite. White
Vancouver.
caps. White
Look, buddy.
caps.
I thought this was an LA Galaxy podcast.
Well, we're the best thing about this episode. We made the CONCACAF Champions Cup final.
And you guys have won one game all season.
Well, it's a long season, and our players are already tired.
Your players are soft.
What? Don't call my team soft, buddy.
I'm not your buddy, friend.
I'm not your friend, guy.
He's not your guy, buddy.
I'm not your buddy, friend.
We're not your
We're
friend,
not your friend, guy.
Oh, yeah? Let's get into it.
You're tuned into news across the galaxy, where they talk all things LA Galaxy with the Nag Boys. Let's start nagging.
On one side of the border or the other, welcome to News Across the Galaxy's The Midweek Show. They're coming at you live from the state-of-the-art NAG Studios underwater base, which is stranded somewhere in the darkest of bottomless voids of the depths of the MLS table. And I think it's taking on water at this point. I'm your host, Edgar Zuniga, with my nag bro on the ones and twos, Brian Lobos. On tonight's show, we are going to talk a bit of MLS news and preview this weekend's LA Galaxy match against Vancouver Whitecaps. And to help us do all that, coming at us all the way live from Vancouver, British Columbia, please give a warm welcome to our good buddies, the hosts of the Terminal City FC podcast, Joshua Ray and Nathan Jurek.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. How you
Good to be
been?
back.
I'm good. I'm sweating here, up here in Vancouver. It's summer.
What is it, like 70 degrees out there?
If 70 is around 26, 28 Celsius, then yes.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure.
Well, let's see. 70 for you guys. We do the conversion.
We got rid of Fahrenheit before I was born, so I can't really quite do that computation.
It'd be 21 degrees out there.
21 degrees. Oh, man.
Well, it feels way more than that.
It's hotter than that. Yeah. Yeah, we're about, I don't know, I guess Fahrenheit, we've got to be 80s, 90s, maybe.
Oh, so it's about the same.
Yeah.
So there you go. Here, we're having the same weather. So, Nathan, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry about your Oilers, man. Sorry, not sorry. And I know Josh is like, yeah. Look at that. He's smirking too because he knows.
Yeah, well, my team isn't that much better. Well, it's actually even worse.
I'm on a chat for our news organization, myself and Josh and all that, and they're all Canucks fans, and I'm the lone Oiler fan. So yeah, throughout the entire playoffs, I just was quiet while he just bitched.
And then at the end, he's like, haha.
Yeah. It was better last year when we played the Canucks during the playoffs. This year we didn't, but yeah, I don't know. I think collectively as a league, we got to figure out these Florida teams.
Hey, you know what? I think I know what it is. I'm just calling it right now. LA Kings 2026 Stanley Cup finalists, not winners, finalists. Because you know what?
You got.
I don't know. I don't know.
Perry.
Thanks for Corey Perry, I guess the king of the Rats.
I don't know. Maybe at 40 years old, he can finally get it done, right?
No, man. Kings fans are really upset right now. Everybody's like looking at this team like, what the hell is going on?
That's okay. We angered Canucks fans earlier with trading Evander Kane to them. So.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. I heard about that, too. I was like, oh, Evander Kane. All the Kings fans, I took a big, deep breath when we found out he ended up going elsewhere. Like, okay, he's not coming here.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about hockey. We're talking about baseball. We're talking about all kinds of different things here. But let's switch real quick, some MLS news. We found out this week that Toronto FC terminated the contracts of Lorenzo Insigne and Federico Bernardeschi, freeing up approximately $21.7 million. God, that's a huge chunk of change. What do you guys think? I know they're on the other side of the country, but I'm sure you guys were like, whoa. I mean, these guys weren't exactly fantastic, were they?
You know what? It needed to happen. Insigne obviously had to go. Besides Messi, he was the biggest contract in MLS for a large portion of his career. He was the biggest contract in MLS, and he was just dead weight. You could tell this was a player that did not want to be in this league, let alone the city. Bernadette Deschke had moments, but it was very few and far between.
Yeah, I remember like hearing some of his teammates. I think it was Insigne's teammates saying that he would vape in the dressing room. His attitude was just very off putting. That didn't really care about just being a good teammate.
Well, it wasn't even that. I mean, he would pick fights with fans, like
Yeah, that
especially
too.
during the times when it just wasn't working for him. His own frustration would boil over, and you would see him picking fights with the supporters that were just coming back at him at the exact same level. Um, the fact that they got rid of both of them, I think, is great for Toronto. It's a huge first piece. They're not going to rewrite the script, this summer, but it gives them an opportunity to do something this summer in preparation for next year.
Yeah. Another team that is already looking towards next year and, well, maybe this year, because we heard earlier this season that LAFC had said that Chirundolo was going to be leaving at the end of the season, and so they're already looking forward to 2026. But they did something interesting. They let Olivier Giroud go, and during this transfer window, um, he departs LA, and the interesting thing about him departing is that when he arrived over there and he joined Leo, right, and Liga, one of the things that he said was um, that he just did not acclimate to the play style in Major League Soccer. And when I would ask LAFC podcasters, and these are different people, right? They're all different personalities, and I asked them what's going on, and they all pretty much seem to agree. It has nothing to do with Giroud. It's just the team is all about Boanga and feeding Boanga the ball, and Giroud's just there as like window dressing, I guess. And so that would be Chirundolo's fault, I guess. So
Josh and
I
I
don't know.
talked about that earlier today on our show, actually.
We
Pretty
did,
much,
yeah.
Share your
yeah.
thoughts. Go ahead.
Mirrored almost the exact same thing that you just said.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
I said that Giroud was like the shiny new toy, the marketing signing, the guy that can sell shirts because he's Olivier Giroud, Champions League winner, Europa League winner.
World
But
Cup
yeah,
winner.
yep, I've been reading about LAFC fans and blogs saying he wasn't a stylistic fit in Steve Cherundolo's system because, like you said, Edgar, it's all about Denny Bouanga. Denny Bouanga runs the show. Drew's just the supporter. And also off the pitch, LA's gone through hell over the past few months with the wildfires, the ice thing. And I wouldn't blame Drew if he pretty much said, "Get me out of here."
no, you're exactly right. I was actually going to share it. One of the podcasters that talks to us, Ivan, I asked him, what are your thoughts on the whole Giroud thing? He's like, it sucks. It didn't work out. Um, and then he said he came to LA at the worst time. There was the wildfires, the whole thing of ice, and then I didn't know this. His home got broken into as
I
well.
saw that. Yeah,
Yep,
that's
he
right.
did.
So all this, I mean, it sucks. Now, following up on that, there's a rumor floating around. I heard that LAFC might pursue Sung Hyun Min, and I'm like,
Really?
whoa, that would be a huge get, not just for them, but for MLS, because uh, especially with the World Cup coming up, and it's going to be here in the U.S. and Canada and Mexico. That's a big get. I don't know if LAFC would be able to pull that off in the summer, maybe for a a winter transfer. But it's something that it is silly season, right? We forget we're in the middle of
You
our season.
I'm a Spurs guy, so I follow Tottenham for decades. His son is likely to leave sometime this summer. It does feel like his time is done. He stuck around to win a trophy. He did his job. He can leave with his reputation at the height. If he goes to LAFC, it's reuniting him with Hugo Lloris. Isn't that right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Not only that, but you're talking about the biggest player pretty much out of at least Eastern Asia. Right, the guy is an absolute phenom. Whenever they would do trips, whether it was Singapore, South Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, it didn't matter where. This was the player that everyone wanted to be a part of. It's actually in Sun Heung-min's contract that Spurs' preseason tour to Hong Kong and South Korea this year must include him. That's how big he is that they wanted to make sure that he would be a part of that tour. But I can see him later on in August, before that trade window ends, him coming over. It's going to be up to him whether he wants to go there or go somewhere else for a big payday. I think coming to LA could be interesting. My only hope is that he doesn't run into the same problem that Olivier Giroud had.
Yeah. And LA has a very large, very thriving Korean population that would embrace him immediately.
I think if he came, coming to the West Coast makes the most sense. So, yeah.
Yeah. And not only that, he's a good looking guy. He's very marketable. I think it would be a great fit, but not just for LA, LAFC. I would love for the Galaxy, but our hands are tied right now.
Yeah.
But for MLS in general, that'd be fantastic. Especially, like I said, with a World Cup coming up next year.
On a personal level, I love the guy. What he does on and off the pitch, he's a good person to watch, and for young players to want to emulate. Like, you won't find a harder working guy than Sun Heung-min. I think he could be a very big asset wherever he goes, and I think he's diverse enough in his playing style that he could find a home at LAFC. I think he would be a benefit there under Trolindelo's system with Denny Bouanga, because they could be playing on opposite sides. I hadn't heard that rumor yet, but you say it, and it's not surprising. I also think that he would be fairly cheap. You could probably pry him away for a couple million in terms of a transfer fee, because this is a player that everyone knows is going to be left. Tottenham will let him go and thank him for his years of service, and I think it would make everyone happy at the end of the day.
Yeah. I personally, I would love to see him play in MLS. I don't know about the noisy neighbors down the street, because I know I would not hear the end of it.
I'd love to see him at Whitecaps.
That would be a dream
sign. Hey, we had YP Lee. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a great way for the Whitecaps to show up, as they make an MLS Cup run, right?
Oh, 100%.
If only we had a DP spot open.
Right. That's all of us right now.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, today, let's switch it up a little bit. USA defeated Guatemala to move into the Gold Cup final. I have not really been very excited about Team USA in a long time. A lot of it is because I just kind of lost interest in the attitudes from the players. There's still like a handful of players that I really admire. But overall, I just really have not cared about this Team USA, which is crazy, because for the longest time, for most of my life, Team USA, the U.S. men's national team, has been my favorite sports team above all, like every sport that I follow. And so for me, it's just been, I feel like this big disconnect. But everybody's been saying, hey, this team is doing great. They're gritty, which is a word that I always reserve for the teams from the 90s and the 2000s, which fought hard against stronger opponents. I just feel like the teams that we have now, they're so talented, they're so gifted, they have so many things, so many advantages over those other teams in the past, but they're not doing anything with it. It feels like a failed generation. So heading into the Gold Cup, I didn't have any expectations at all for them. But here they are, back in the final, right? Which begs the question, because they played against Guatemala, what happened to our neighbors from the north? What happened to Canada, guys?
So, basically, Canada caused their own demise in the Gold Cup. Not just the Guatemala game, but you can even look back to the game against Curacao, because this team, when their backs are against the wall and they're facing adversity, they crumble. And they let the emotions get the better of them, because Jacob Schaffelberg got a second yellow against Guatemala for pretty much elbowing the guy, which is just, how do you do that with a second yellow right before halftime? And Canada had to play down a man, and they just couldn't adapt to the game. and penalties. They lost their composure and like emotions, not just from the players, but from Jesse Marsh as well. He's obviously a very emotional guy, he's a motivator, but it just feels too much at times. Like in the Nations League, he got sent off for barking at the referee. That attitude is kind of rubbed off on the players because the players would be just losing their heads like Schaffelberg did. And overall, as Canadian soccer fans, we're very disappointed that Canada didn't win the Gold Cup. The expectation was to win it because despite not having Alfonso Davies, Steven Estacchio, Moise Bombito, they were a talented team. When things work for Canada, it works. But when it doesn't work, it's very frustrating. And it goes to show that this team is still young, it's still immature, and there's a lot of issues that need to be fixed before the World Cup next year.
I'll mirror a lot of that. One of the things that I thought really, really hurt the Canadian team heading into this game specifically was not having Stefan Eustachio released from Porto after they bowed out of the Club World Cup. The player had said, as soon as we're done out of the World Cup, whenever that may be, I want to come and join Canada if they're still in the tournament. And he was ready to go. And Porto, at some point, I don't know when, changed their minds. Stefan Eustachio is constantly called Canada's engine. What he does in the midfield, not only in terms of dictating the flow, the play, the pace, and everything, he is that leadership presence, even though he's not the captain anymore. And I think we needed someone like him to guide everyone else. And without him, there's no one really there is. Even for this tournament, I mean, I know that Jonathan David was given the captaincy in the absence of Alfonso Davies, but this was a player that didn't want it. Kudos to him for stepping up, taking it, and being effective. But I think they needed someone else with more of a presence, and Stefan Eustachio would have been that guy.
Yeah, like you said, the team is very talented. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the USA teams from the 90s and 2000s. Uh, and then I look at Canada, and it's kind of parallel with the Caps, which I always said this, especially in the last couple of years. I feel like the Caps are always on the verge of something greater, and it just seems that they need to get over the hump with something, and they could be really good. And I feel like Canada's like that. Canada's like on the verge of something really fantastic, and they gotta figure it out. Because I remember at the World Cup, I really thought they could make some noise in that group, and then I was just it was disappointing, right? It was just like, damn. And
Yeah,
then
I
Gold
will
Cup.
say with the Gold Cup and the pre-tournament that Canada was a part of, we had an invitational tournament up in Canada where Cote d'Ivoire, Ukraine, and I'm forgetting the other team that
I
came
think
up.
New Zealand? I
New
don't remember
Zealand,
either.
thank you. New Zealand
Oh, really
came
was? I
and we
don't
played
really.
a tournament. There were individuals who broke out and have started to establish themselves. I think we need to talk about Nathan Saliba, who just recently also moved from Montreal, who's now going to be playing with Anderlecht in the Belgian top league. And the other player I would say is Nico Siger, who really, really broke out, who plays with Hajduk over in Croatia. These are two players that I think are going to be very, very important to watch. Another one I put in there would be Luc de Fougerols, who is with Fulham's U21s right now. We'll have to wait and see if that stays that way. But collectively as a team, it is a failure. The fact that yet again they couldn't get past the quarterfinal stage, which is where they bowed out a couple years ago. The fact that they let Guatemala into their first ever semifinal, a team that Guatemala hasn't won against Canada in decades. I couldn't actually find stats on it. So much, and to what Josh's point was in the fact that Canada was their own worst enemy, I think you have to give credit to Guatemala because when Canada went a man down, Guatemala pounced. And they played a very effective game and they dictated it. And in all honesty, they probably deserved to win that game in regular time without penalties.
Wow. Now just got to get ready for the World Cup because it's right around the corner. It'll be here quicker than we can think. I'm still waiting to get the opportunity to buy tickets So I'm just gonna sell one of my kidneys, maybe half of my liver, so I can
I've
afford
seen
to take
some
it
of
home.
the luxury box tickets and what they're going for. I mean, what 70, 80,000 Canadian?
Oh my god!
Yeah.
No
So I
thanks.
don't know. Selling a kidney might not cut it.
That's true, right?
You
I
might
have
have
to
to get
sell
rid of
like,
both.
yeah, sell my arm.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, back to LA. Some Galaxy news, something that shook up some Galaxy fans. As you guys know, we've been dealing with a lot of interesting issues, not just in Los Angeles, but across the state of California and overall the entire country and even the world, because of the Tangerine Palpatine, who's in charge, there at the White House, has decided to uh, make himself king. Well, California is known to be very rebellious against him, and he doesn't like us. And so he's trying to throw his weight around, with especially having ICE come here and go after people that are working individuals who pay taxes, people that are just trying to make ends meet instead of going after criminals. Because, surprise, surprise, it takes a lot of work to go after dangerous criminals. So you go after the most vulnerable people, right? Well, ICE has been showing up all over the Southern California area, and just yesterday, I showed up to the campus of Cal State Dominguez Hills University, which is where the stadium, the Dignity Health Sports Park, is located on the corner of the campus. Galaxy owns that plot of land itself, but it's just the fact that the stadium is located there. Well, they showed up. Um, Corner of the Galaxy, our buddies at Corner of the Galaxy, Josh Guessman, posted about it first, and that Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents had entered into Cal State Dominguez Hills parking lot, lot 6. They did not enter Dignity Health Sports Park, which is considered private property. The gates prevented unauthorized entrance to the stadium lots and buildings. And the ICE agents stayed in that lot and left before 10 a.m. The university police, which are state, they are employed by the state of California.
Oh.
They were made aware of the situation, and they contacted the agents and determined they were not conducting immigration enforcement activity on campus, that they were just using it as a staging area, and then they moved on to another location. So it's a lot of walking on eggshells. It's a lot of trying to not step on toes or escalate things over here, because as we already know that uh, the president has deployed National Guard and the Marines there, which are currently all over LA right now. It's a very tense situation, and a lot of people will say different things based on their how comfortable they are by expressing it publicly. But from an outsider's point of view, you guys are seeing this. I sometimes I share stuff with you guys. Sometimes, I'll tell you what's going on, or you see it yourselves on the news. How does this look like for you guys from your point of view up there in BC?
Equally parts surprising and not surprising, I guess. We had a preview of this a few years ago. It didn't get to this degree, but it seems like what you have right now is a man acting out of irrational anger. And he has a pulpit to do it, and he's got the power behind it to make everyone else fear his wrath. You're either with him or you're against him. And if you're against him, you're gone.
Yeah, just from an outsider, it's scary,
Yeah.
and that's one of the reasons why a lot of Canadians are afraid to go to the U.S., especially LA. Like for example, I've never been to LA. I've always wanted to visit LA. Even to watch some sports games there. But even if I had the money to do that, I wouldn't, given, I am a minority. And I've read on the news a couple of days ago a Canadian tourist died in custody of ICE.
Yeah.
And without getting in too much, the orange man, the dictator, whatever you want to call him, that guy, he just wants to prove to everyone that he's the man. Like, I'm number one. I'm the greatest. If you don't think I'm the greatest, I'm gonna punish you. So it's just a very scary situation for all the people down in LA, and it's bigger than sports.
I think when it comes to, especially from Canada, because we share the world's longest land border with your country, and you kind of have to separate the people from the organization of United States and Canada. The relationship that people have. I don't think that's ever going to go away. It's too ingrained within our shared histories, and that shared history goes back before our two countries even became countries. But whatever sort of relationship or buddy system that existed between governments, it just feels like it's now working with any other country around the world. That there's not that special relationship of just because you're so close by proximity that you're dealing with everyone on a daily basis. It does feel like that is not necessarily done, but it's at least in a holding pattern right now. I think everyone is just waiting for him to go so that we can just get back to running the world again. We kind of just need to, I don't know, maybe it's the Canadian way of just having long memories and long patience, but yeah, we're just biding our time right now.
Yeah, I really wish I could just go back to that time when I never, ever, ever paid attention. I mean, I never paid attention to politics, but I just want to go to back to that time when I never really checked the news, for a damage report of what,
Yeah.
what happened, today and how I shake my head. I just want to go back to just focusing on sports and science fiction and all the stuff that I enjoy. Yeah, but it's something that you can't really ignore it. Even if you try to bury your head in the sand, eventually it's gonna get you. And unfortunately, for all the people that voted for him, it's soon gonna hurt them in the worst way possible.
Well, and that's the other thing is it's there. I mean, obviously in Canada, we hear about the whole 51st state nonsense. We hear about the tariffs because, either it's on or, 24 hours later it's off. It's tough to keep up. But at the end of the day, none of that really hurts us north of the border because all Canada started doing was making trade agreements with everyone else. So we're not really paying anything extra on a few things here and there. But by and large, things haven't stopped. Like they're taking a look at the port in Vancouver. They need to double the size of it because of the increased trade that's, going elsewhere. It feels like America is shooting themselves in the foot. Like, I mean, even it came out today. Your dollar is crashing faster than it has ever in its history since 1973 or something like that. So sure, that'll help you, not necessarily in the way you want it to, but I don't know. My hope is that the midterms are a wake up call, that you get, a few people in there that can provide checks and balances that don't exist right now. And that 2 years after that, you get back to the whole idea of politics where you can just grumble about the minutia about it and not worried about if someone's going to be kicking down your door.
Nah, for real. Yeah, that's what I want to get back to.
Right. We should be complaining about taxes or something like that, right? Just
Yeah.
random stupid stuff rather than, do I get to stay here tonight?
Yeah.
It's
No,
it's
you're
true.
absolutely
I can't
true.
imagine what it would be like to live underneath that right now. It's surreal enough knowing that it's not that far away from our border. Forget living under it. That's a foreign concept to me.
Well, let's
Move on to
let's
happy.
get let's move on to something a little happier, right? Because we could be here all night and just kind of grumble about things, right? But
Yeah.
we're here to have fun, and we love having you guys on. So let's talk about the Whitecaps, right? Because we have seen, I mean, like I was saying, I always felt like the Whitecaps were that one team that was always on the verge of something great, and it seems that something's finally clicking this year until recently. But what has happened? Because the last time these two teams played each other was match week 2.
Hmm.
So what's happened to the Caps since the win at BC Place? I know it's been quite an adventure. Because at one point, I'll tell you guys, I was at a rainy. It was LA Galaxy versus Herediano, and it was raining. I remember that game, and several of us were like gathered on my phone. I was watching the Whitecaps game, and when the Whitecaps won that game, I think it was against Monterrey or
Yeah. Very,
Oh,
when
very big Brian Michael.
when we finally saw the final score, there was like a small cheer in the Galaxy supporters sound like "Yay, go Caps!" So we
You
were
know
we
what?
were pulling for you guys.
It was just a ride. It was an absolute ride that you didn't want it to end, and you couldn't just believe that you were a part of it. No one expected the Whitecaps to do what they were doing, and I mean, the fact that they bowed out in the final in the manner that they did was a very sobering wake up call. Um, Honestly, it was likely the outcome that was going to happen anyway. But now that we're at least, what, almost a month removed from that, I guess, I'm already being able to look back at that run and just being like wow, I couldn't have begun to have believed that they would have been able to pull out something like that, playing against Monterrey, playing against Pumas, playing against Miami the way they did. It was just it was special.
Yeah, it truly was a special Champions Cup ride. One that Whitecaps fans will never forget. The way it ended was just terrible on and off the pitch. And regardless, like beating Monterrey and then beating Pumas when it looked like they were going out, and then Tristan Blackman scoring like right after Pumas scored one of the biggest goals in Whitecaps history, and then the tie against Inter Miami. Messi actually comes to Vancouver, and the Whitecaps nullify him in front of a record crowd. That, for me personally, that is a night in my career I will never ever forget. Being in that stadium, being in the press box during that game, and then the second leg where they just took over the whole game. Just sad. Obviously, they didn't win the whole thing, and etched their name into CONCACAF and MLS lore. But I mean, but for fans across MLS, it's it warms my heart. It warms like a lot of Whitecaps fans' hearts to see that the rest of the league was cheering for Vancouver and not against Vancouver, especially even though the guys from Seattle and Portland.
Yeah.
And just thanks for backing the Whitecaps. And the Champions Cup run was special, but right now the focus is on Canadian Championship and the league.
I think Josh is right. It was definitely not lost on anyone up here that it felt like we had the backing of the everyday, soccer fan throughout MLS. I also feel that the Whitecaps themselves they don't feel lucky for making the final. It was on merit. And now that they've been to the final, there's a little bit of a chip on their shoulder of like, all right, now it's time to get back here. We didn't get as far as we wanted to. We're happy we got as far as we did, but now we got to win the thing. Like now we got to get back, right? We're not finished yet.
Yeah.
So I like that feeling of like, oh no, we were just happy to be at the party. It was like, no, now it's time to do it, right? So I like that feeling. They hit a bit of a bump after that. Obviously, we went through the fact, I think we had 18 or 19 players out for the next game because of international call-ups and sickness and
Dear
injury.
God, the sickness.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
We had the game after that. We were playing Seattle and we won 3-0. And we were talking to Javine Badwal, a youth product through Whitecaps 2, signed a full-term contract at the beginning of the season. Game time here or there. Well, he got a start and he got his first goal. So we were asking him, what was your week like in terms of getting ready for this? He's like, my entire week was sitting on the toilet.
Oh my God.
Right? Like that was training. They couldn't train because the game was on a Sunday. The entire week they didn't train until the Saturday, and they still didn't know who was going to play until the end of that because they didn't know what players were going to be able to handle the load management because they had lost so much water basically out of both ends.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing about this. Because we saw the score, right? And
Yeah.
I remember we're in our group chat, our little MLS meeting. Everybody was shocked. Everybody's like, "What the hell is going on?" How do you get that far? To go out literally like a wet fart, right? And then then you start hearing afterwards, well, this was the situation that we were presented with. This is what was going on with the players, and then the narrative became much more familiar because it's something that we have heard before. It happened to Columbus,
Columbus did the same.
Columbus.
and it's happened to other teams as well, as we mentioned in the past. And when you get into that level of skullduggery, right, where you're doing all these underhanded things, and even when you take as many precautions as possible, that's really sad because I feel like on neutral territory, um, or if there wasn't all this outside influence, I really think the Caps would have put up a better fight and maybe even have won the game.
So many of us were watching the semifinal on the other side, looking at the scoreline mathematics of like what would need to happen in order for the game to be at BC Place, and we knew that it was a pipe dream, but we knew what was going to happen if we had to play this in Mexico, and well, it came to fruition. But I think we have more knowledge and we're better prepared.
You got CONCACAF.
Exactly.
Don't we always?
Yeah, we always get CONCACAF. Oh God, no.
That one sounded.
Well,
Yeah.
so guys, more on the Caps. Last time we spoke to you guys, there was the whole thing about the impending sale of the Whitecaps, and we recently had Buddy Sassarabia, who was talking about how the demon himself, John Fisher, was selling the San Jose Earthquakes. Finally, hopefully
About
they
time,
find
yeah.
a good owner that will keep them there in San Jose so that that team can thrive. We would love to keep them there as a rival and just having their MLS as a presence, especially the history of the club. What's going on with the Whitecaps, guys?
Radio silence.
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah. The only thing that we have had in terms of news is the possibility of a soccer specific stadium. So the city of Vancouver has been working with current ownership of the Whitecaps and basically saying, like, you know, if we know a sale's happening, but what can we do to kind of sweeten the pot in order to stay here? So they've been looking at land in and around the city of if we put a piece of land in as part of a package deal and say, like, okay, whoever buys it, now you have this land, go and build whatever you want. Would that kind of sweeten the pot? So there has been a little bit of talk about that. Other than that, I don't know if we're going to hear anything until September. It's going to be very, very late. I really hope it's not pushing MLS playoffs at that time, and all of a sudden we have news breaking about a sale and we're in the middle of trying to do a playoff run. But who knows? Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, the soccer-specific stadium is pretty much the only news surrounding that.
Yeah.
And they've identified a location, which is at the Hastings Racecourse, or former Hastings Racecourse. I haven't been there in a while, where the fairgrounds are, and where the Whitecaps is temporary home in their inaugural season in 2011. Empire Field used to be close to there, but there's this whole like debacle with the city, with the people who own the land and all that. Ideally, that would be a good place for a soccer-specific stadium, but the only problem is there's hardly any transit other than buses.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, the last time I was out there, I literally stayed like 3 blocks from the stadium with a friend of mine who was living there in downtown, and I walked to the stadium, which is really cool.
Well, that's the beauty about BC Place. You have BC Place, and then you have Rogers Arena, where the Canucks play right beside each other, and they're right in the heart of downtown. They're so unbelievably accessible, no matter where you are in the entire lower mainland of British Columbia. The problem with Vancouver is there's no plot of land big enough to build a stadium. Vancouver's surrounded by water on 3 sides and a city on the other. Like, you can't go out. The only way you can go is up. So if you want to build a brand new stadium, you got to get rid of something first. That's why they're looking at this race course.
Yeah, and say what you want about BC Place, but having the SkyTrain, different lines, pretty much walking distance from there is a huge caveat. And where Hastings Racecourse is, there's a planned SkyTrain going there, but that's not happening for another 50, 60, 70 years.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Next thing you know, we're going to hear that, they're building a new stadium for the Caps in Whistler. It's like, oh, wow.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. I mean, it could happen. I mean, the 49ers were supposed to build, NFL Niners were supposed to build a new stadium in the Bay Area, and they ended up building like 60 miles away, I think, in Santa Clara. It's like, they're not the San Francisco 49ers anymore, right?
Well, the horrible thing is when the Whitecaps were originally bought back in 2003 by the one owner that bought him, Greg Kerfoot. He had a plot of land on Vancouver's waterfront that he wanted to do a land swap with the federal government for a smaller piece of land and build a stadium. He was going to pay for the entire thing, but he waited for years and years and years to get an answer, and nothing ever came back, so he eventually just sold the land. this could have already been done
Yep.
2 decades ago. But, when you're trying to deal with bureaucracy, it's, people just get frustrated and then they leave.
Now, if they do build a soccer-specific stadium, is it going to be domed or because I
I would
know
assume it would
the springs
be
are kind of
outdoor.
rough, right?
I think
Yeah.
it would be outdoor, kind of like what Empire
What
Field
Empire
used to
was.
be, or like the old Whitecaps stadium at Swangard Stadium. Yeah, it would be very tough to do a domed place. The one thing you'd have to worry about in Vancouver is the rain, snow. I mean, it happens, but not during MLS, where we're pretty temperate where we are compared to the rest of Canada. I don't think you would be able to build a stadium and have it economically feasible enough to put a dome over it. It'd be just a bridge too far.
So would the Caps have a deal kind of like Montreal has, where like they play some games with inclement weather inside Olympic Stadium, and then the rest of the time they're at Saputo Stadium?
Honestly, they might, because the one thing is if you remove the Whitecaps from BC Place, that is your major tenant now gone. The BC Lions play there in the Canadian Football League, our version of NFL, but their season is so short. Like they don't even their home games are basically, you can count the number of home games they have on 2 hands. So you're losing a major tenant. My guess is that BC Place wants to do whatever they can to try and keep the Whitecaps as well, because I don't know what you do there without them.
Yeah, and the lease for
tractor
BC Place is up this year.
It is,
Also.
yeah.
I would say
Regardless
you guys
of what
gotta have-
happens, even if they do somehow get a new stadium, they're not leaving BC Place for a while, right? It takes a while to get that done. My guess is that they're at BC Place guaranteed another 5-8 years if they stay in Vancouver, which should happen. Things are pointing in that direction, but anytime there's a sale, you worry a little bit.
At least DC Place is going to get a nice little facelift for the World Cup, right?
They're in the middle of it right now.
It's already happening.
Working on construction for the past 6 to 8 months. They're adding new boxes. I know right by where we go in, they're putting in new elevators because it just was a building built in like 1980, 1983.
That place is a gong show with its elevators.
It basically, it looks like a building that was built in 1980. But it's like anything else with the World Cup when it comes to North America. They're about a year behind schedule.
Yeah, I still think it's a really beautiful stadium. Like you say, it's got that strange brutalist kind of architecture on the outside. And the first time I went there, those corridors were really drab and gray. But the last time I was out there a couple years ago, it looked like they had more splashes of color. So it didn't feel like you're in some underground bunker.
When Vancouver hosted the Olympics in 2010. So they completely gutted it out. That's when they put in the retractable roof, because it used to be the old air dome.
Yeah, that was.
And they have done a lot of work. But I was talking to someone in Whitecaps Communications, and they said if they ever did decide to get rid of BC Place, the amount of blasting you would have to do, you'd have to shut down almost half of downtown.
Oh my God!
Because of how big it is. They said there's enough concrete in that building that you could build a highway from Vancouver to the Kootenays, the interior BC and all the mountains. It's just, I mean, the entire thing. We had an earthquake up here a few months back, and I don't know if you remember, Josh, but there was, I think it was the Canadian women's rugby team was actually playing a game at that time. My daughter was there as part of a school trip. They didn't even feel it. The game kept going. The entire thing was built like a Cold War bunker.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a tough old building, man. Yeah. But I like it.
Ain't going anywhere without dynamite.
Well, guys, with the Caps, sitting pretty at the middle of the season, are they eyeing any potential transfers for the summer?
There's a couple.
I have to say so.
Yeah.
Axel Schuster, very open guy, sporting director and CEO. From what I remember I don't remember where he said this exactly. I think Sportsnet 650, which is the radio station here in Vancouver for sports, he said that the Whitecaps, being better than anyone expected, has changed their plans a little. And especially now that Pedro Vite has reportedly signed an extension till 2029, which is a big for the midfield, big for the player, big for the Whitecaps. So I'm sure they'll do something. It's been fairly quiet. Though they have been linked to some Eastern European attackers. They've even the Athletic has also reported that they offered Luke DeFrogerol a contract, given that he won't get minutes with the first team in Fulham. And I think that would be good depth for the Whitecaps back line and good for the player to develop his game even more. So we'll see what happens. Right now, it's just rumors.
Yeah, there are holes that the Whitecaps need to plug. Most immediately right now is at left back with Sam Adekugbe, who went down injured with the Canadian national team just before the Gold Cup, and he is out now with Achilles for the rest of the entire season. He's done. So all we have is a 19-year-old Tate Johnson, who I mean has been phenomenal. He has been a revelation, and I honestly believe this is a kid that if it wasn't for the fact that he's playing left back, should be in consideration for Rookie of the Year. But you can't just rely on him for the entirety of a season. They've tried to do swaps, moving a right back over to left back. It does force a change into how they play, and I think they do need someone left-footed over there. Dufugerols is, I believe, a left-sided center back. I believe he has spent time as left back as well. He's another young player, but he's with the Canadian setup already. I think he showed himself very positively. It would be a good move, and I believe his contract with Fulham is done this summer. So it's going to be a matter of whether or not he believes he can ply his trade elsewhere throughout Europe, England especially, or does he want to look somewhere else? Because with the Whitecaps, he'll get first team minutes.
Well, fellas, let's get into this game itself. Right now, Galaxy, obviously, last place in the West, last overall in MLS. It rhymes. Caps, second place in the West, fourth overall in MLS with a game in hand. All-time records between these two teams, 35. They played each other 35 times in the regular season. Galaxy has 16 wins. The Caps have 12 with 7 draws between them. Playing at home, Galaxy has 11 wins. The Caps have won 4 times and with 3 draws. Obviously, the last time these two teams played each other, like we mentioned, was match week 2. The Whitecaps beat the Galaxy 2-1 at BC Place. LA Galaxy gave up goals to start the match and to end the match, which was really disappointing because that's one of the things that this team has been doing all season long. And at the very beginning, we just thought like, oh well, it's only the second week of the season. They'll be okay. They'll bounce back. But one of the things that happened in that game that really hurt the Galaxy was that Lucas Sanabria left in the 75th minute after a hard foul that broke his collarbone.
Yeah.
In case you're wondering, the last time the Caps won at the Dig was on March 7th, 2020. I was there. We had no idea what was about to happen in the world. But I remember Captain Chicharito was there, Christian Pavon, Jonah Dos Santos, Sebastian Lletget, and a certain heel named Sasha Clayston were all LA Galaxy players. They were shut out by Maxime Crepeau and a very determined Cap squad. Oh my God, it feels like a whole
Feels like a
different world,
lifetime ago.
right?
A lot has changed since then, football
Yes.
and non-football wise.
Yeah, very true. I'm positive on the Whitecaps right now. We were just in LA playing LAFC last weekend. Got a 1-0 win there. A very defensive game. Again, we're still missing a lot of players through injury and international call-up. Josh can talk probably about this game a little bit more, but for as little possession as they had, it was actually a great, hard-fought Whitecaps win. And I believe they have it in their locker to do it again.
Yeah, that game was a defensive masterclass by the Whitecaps, and a good bounce back considering they gave up 5 goals to San Diego the game before, and only 1 shot on target. That was the goal. Emmanuel Savi's really nice goal, first touch, and then half volley into the net, assist by the youngster Jeevan Badwal. And from that game, the Whitecaps did a really good job nullifying Olivier Giroud and Denis Bouanga, and I think Matias Laborda, the right back, had his best game as a Whitecap because he was all over Bouanga. They were very structured, disciplined, and didn't let the moment get to them because they know LAFC very well. They know how capable Bouanga is carrying them apart. But heading into this game, heading back to LA, I sense a confident team, but a team that they're a team that takes things day by day. They don't want things to like get too high, get too low. They're a team that's gonna just stick to the plan and go for the 3 points.
Well, guys, player availability report. Like we said, Ricky Poo is just getting one day closer to coming back. I don't know if he should come back this year because this team is a roaring. I was gonna say dumpster fire, but more like a tire yard fire at this point. Like those you take all those old
It's
tires
like
and they
that
just burn
weird
and burn.
pit on fire in Tajikistan, right? That they lit like
Yeah,
40 years ago and still burning.
yeah. People say it's like the entrance to hell. Well, we're in hell as
Yeah.
far as LA Galaxy is concerned. Um, as far as disciplinary, Carlos Emiro Garces and Isaiah Parente are still one yellow card away from a suspension or fine. What can you tell us about the Caps as far as availability for this weekend's
Well, we
match?
definitely have Sam Adekugbe injured, as we talked about before. Ryan Gauld is still dealing with his knee sprain that he suffered a couple of months ago. There's generally no timeline. We know he's in the gym, he's training, he's working on fitness, but he's not back on the pitch. Ali Ahmed, back from Canadian duty, he is injured. He's probably out for about another 6 weeks. Uh, Giuseppe Bovalina, I believe, has already been ruled out due to illness. I believe that's it. We have
And Andres Kubis
Andres
he
Kubis
won't
is
play
sure.
on Friday due to an ankle injury he suffered against LAFC, according to our friend Har of Daily Hive and Canadian Soccer Daily. Um, no suspensions, it looks like, and Bovalin is out with illness. Jaden Nelson will be back from international duty as Canada is out of the Gold Cup. So
The other two
that's pretty
players that are missing right now are the two Americans, Brian White, Sebastian Berhalter. So,
pretty
although
In the
much.
final, baby.
honestly,
Yeah.
I feel like they could give us back Brian White for the game because you're not using him, right?
Of course not. Oh my God, what a waste. Well,
Berhalter's doing pretty good for himself.
no, I think he's gonna be. I think he's gonna be great.
Yeah.
As far as like, I don't know about 2026, but definitely for the future.
Yep.
He's one of those guys that pay the iron price, you could say, because he worked hard to get to where he is.
He did. That's for
Um,
sure.
so gentlemen, you talked about the match against LAFC, but what would it take for LA Galaxy to defeat this motivated Caps team this time around in LA?
I think they'd
Are
have
we
to
that
be.
bad? Are we that bad? You guys have to like
I
really
think
think
they'll
about
have
it.
to really be structured defensively, especially with Brian White out. Nothing against Daniel Rios, but he's not Brian White. He's
Yeah.
not the same type of player, and unlikely. But they'd have to find a way to catch the Whitecaps napping, like they did, like the way San Diego did, because they carved Vancouver defensively. But for Galaxy, it's a tough task against a very disciplined, motivated Whitecaps team, and I'm expecting. I'm not expecting this game to be easy by any means. Like records don't mean anything heading into any sports games. So if the Whitecaps have trouble like breaching the LA Galaxy defense or the goalkeeper, there's a chance there.
I see two things. One, if the Galaxy want to score, they got to figure out how to get by either Laborda or Johnson. They've got to pick a side and attack that one fullback over and over and over again. We've seen teams do it before, especially with Johnson, just because he is young. It is his first season. But we also know that Johnson plays with maturity beyond his years. He has been able to handle it. In order to stop the Whitecaps going forward, you gotta don't worry about if the wingers get the ball and they start coming in. You got to hope your center backs can take care of that. But you got to stop it at its source, and that source is Pedro Vite. You got to stop it in the midfield. You've got to overload that midfield. You've got to give players like Pedro Vite absolutely no space to do anything with the ball, because as soon as he gets it at his feet, he gets his head up, you're done. He has already picked out the pass, and he'll. It doesn't matter if you're 2 feet away from him. He's got it by you.
What's the Whitecaps? I don't know if I know this is kind of out of left field, but do you guys have any idea what the Whitecaps record is when they give up the first goal in a match?
I believe. I, it's a good question. I believe they've won a couple of games, giving up the first
They've
goal,
actually done very well this
but they've
season.
done them.
Yeah,
Yeah, they've
even
done
coming
well.
from behind, right?
But when they score first, I know they're undefeated.
Lethal, lethal. Yeah. Once they
Yeah,
score first,
yeah,
the Whitecaps are not a team that bunkers down. And well, I mean, in rare cases, LAFC obviously we don't have the personnel, so they will. But L- the game plan of the Whitecaps is score one more if they can, right?
yeah.
Yeah, Jesper Sorensen has been very adamant on holding the lead and not getting too complacent.
There's a lot of trust going forward, especially with the defensive pairing of Veselinovic and Blackman. Center back, the two center backs have been. I know Blackman made the MLS All Star game. You could have put Veselinovic into that conversation as well. And then you have Yohei Takioka, who just got his leading, I think, ninth clean sheet against LAFC and was the coach's choice for the All Star game. So the Whitecaps have no concerns. The players on the pitch have no concerns about the players behind them, and it gives them license to really, really come at you.
Yeah, I was about to mention Tagaoka's having a fantastic career year.
He's
100%.
surprising a lot of people. I will fully admit there's still people that comment on some of the stuff that I write and do that they're not sold on him. And I'm at the point where it's like, I don't know what else to tell you.
A lot of
don't know what else
people
to tell you.
complain about Takaoka and his height, given, the set pieces against on corners, but you can't really change that. And
He's a very
Takaoka,
technical goalkeeper. He's great with his feet to the point that it
yep,
gives me heart palpitations sometimes because he likes to sometimes dribble his way out of trouble. He can do
but he
it,
has,
but it doesn't look pretty all the time.
Hey,
but he always managed to do it successfully, which
Yeah,
is great.
yeah, and he's a very calm presence in organizing everyone in front of him.
no, it's always exciting to have a goalkeeper that can dribble out. We used to have one like that, and right from the very beginning, the very first ever Galaxy player, Jorge Campos, was a legendary Mexican goalkeeper who was also known for being a striker when he played with Pumas. And so from time to time, he almost worked like a sweeper or like a wingback because he would gather the ball, drop it, and just start dribbling up the field all the way up to the midfield, and then kick the ball into space. And
It's
more
like the
often than
Olympics
not,
playing
Galaxy would
lacrosse.
score goals like that. It was fantastic.
That's really funny.
It was fun, and I mean, there were a few times he got caught, but when he did it and it caught everyone by surprise, it was dramatic. It was so much fun. It was cinema, man. I loved it.
It was
Um,
pretty entertaining.
well, we don't have a ref report, like I've said before, like several times over the last few weeks. The pro referees website has been flagged for phishing. You shady, shady referees. Shady on the field, shady off the field too. And you even have a shady website now too. But as soon as I get the opportunity to, and they do unveil the ref report, I mean the ref assignments, I will definitely share those with you guys and with everybody else, so we could kind of scratch our beards a little and wonder if that's going to have any impact on this game. Because, gentlemen, this is the fun part for you guys. Predictions. Because, yeah, and I'll let you both go first because you're our guests on the show.
I'll go with a 2-0 Whitecaps win and a goal from Pedro Vite, which I hope will be a banger because he knows how to score bangers. And why not a goal from Daniel Rios? He needs one.
I was going to say 2-0 as well. I'd love to see Nelson go right back into the lineup and fight for that spot back, especially because we have players like Ali Ahmed that are injured. I'd like to see a goal from Nelson, and yeah, I'll go Rios too. I mean, he needs to get rolling.
I don't expect anything from this Galaxy team, but I do expect them to crumble if they give up goals, especially early. And if they're down, I wouldn't be surprised if they are down 2-0 at the half. They were in the past, they showed some fight in some of the games, and you could tell that they were genuinely trying, and it just, for one reason or other, things that just were not working out for them.
Yeah.
It feels like over the past week or so, couple weeks maybe, that it's really. settled in that this team isn't just unlucky, they're bad. They're really bad. And everybody's trying too hard to make things happen. Um, and I don't know how they didn't lose a game to San Jose. San Jose actually put up a good fight, but the Galaxy was able to fight back and get the draw. But that's a Cali Classico. That's a rivalry match. Those rivalry matches sometimes don't go the way you expect them to. But I feel like the right now at this moment in time, the Whitecaps completely outclassed the LA Galaxy, and I would not be surprised if this game ended up 3 or 4-0. Because there, you look at the players, the body language. The LA Galaxy players are very, very frustrated, and then you have, like I said, a Whitecaps team that has comes in with a chip on its shoulder, saying things didn't go our way in the Champions Cup. Well, now we're gonna go for everything: Supporter Shield, MLS Cup, and if we're gonna have to run through the champions to prove it, that's exactly what we're gonna do. And what a scalp it would be to like, eviscerate the champions in their own home, right?
I think if we had Bearhalter and Whiteback, four goals wouldn't be far out. I think it might be a little bit difficult, but I still think it will be a win for the Whitecaps.
Yeah, I have to agree with that.
Terrible, terrible.
Yeah, and just
You know what? You go through. You hope that it's only a year you go through. I hope that's all it is.
yeah,
Oh,
because
thank
up
you.
here in
That's so
Vancouver, it was
Canadian of you. Thank
many
you. That's
years.
very nice.
Hey, I'm an Oilers fan. I went through a decade.
I'm a Kings fan. It's been 4 years in a row, man, of the same oily things.
That's because you just kept poaching our players.
I remember my son. I actually sat him there to watch games with me because he's shown interest in hockey, and he's like, "Who are we playing, Daddy?" I'm like, "We're playing against the oily guys," and he's like, "Oh, the oily guys are bad." And then at
Okay.
the end, he's like, "Papa, who won?" I'm like, "The oily guys won," and he got really sad. He was like, "I want the Kings to win." I'm like, "I'm sorry, son. The oily guys won." He's like, "I don't like the
Reminds
oily
me
guys. They're
Unforgiving
bad
sport.
guys."
reminds
That's
me
the
when I
problem
was a
with sports.
kid.
Is they're unforgiving, right?
Yeah,
What's
when I
that?
was a kid, that was me with the Chicago Blackhawks because the Canucks and the Blackhawks made the playoffs like three times in a row.
Oh yeah. No, I remember the Blackhawks very well. When the Kings won their 2 cups, we ran into those guys 4 years in a row, and oh god, those were wars. But
Those were great series.
yeah, yeah, gentlemen. So, by the way, you guys mentioned All Star selections.
Mm.
Congratulations! I mean, LA Galaxy fans. There it was interesting. There's two types of Galaxy fans. There were the ones that are like, um, hey, wouldn't it be great if one of our guys made it to the All Star team? And in there, ones were like, nobody deserves to be on that All Star team. And we hope that nobody gets on the All Star team because we don't need that distraction right now. So,
I've always been one. I've never been a fan of All Star games. That's just me. It doesn't matter the sport. It feels All Star games always feel more like about marketing the league rather than the players. But you know what? It's the most players they've ever had that got picked. So congratulations to them. Four players: Brian White, Sebastian Bearhalter, Tristan Blackman, and Yohei Takioka. I think if you're going to pick players, you know what? You could have put Pedro Vite in there. You could have put Ranko Veselinovic in there. You had a glut of wealth to choose from. So I'm happy for the players, and I guess I'll have to watch.
Yeah, me too. And hopefully nothing bad happens to them during the All Star game.
Yeah.
And I don't really care for All Star games either. As I got older, I just feel like it's very gimmicky. But you know what? Why not? It goes to show the talent of the Vancouver Whitecaps. And prior to the selections, people were wondering, oh, who are we going to pick from the Whitecaps? There's so many good players. You could have picked Vite, could have picked Kubas, could have picked Veselinovic. And if Ryan Gold was healthy, he'd definitely be a slam dunk pick. But congrats to Takaoka, Blackman, Berhalter, and White. They fully deserve it. Great players and great professionals too.
yeah, just I think it was last week or a couple weeks ago, we had one of our co-hosts, Eddie, on the show, and we were chit-chatting about All-Star games, right? And we were talking about like how some leagues haven't really done well with their All-Star, like NBA All-Star weekend has seems kind of blah now, and Major League Baseball has kind of had to revamp it. And then you look at what the NHL did, and it was so awesome. And you can't really replicate that in MLS. And I'm thinking, how can you make the MLS All Star Game more palatable? Because Liga MX versus MLS is, I prefer the old Western Conference versus Eastern Conference thing.
Yeah.
But can you imagine if we had something like the Four Nations Face Off um, in MLS? Oh my goodness! I
Four
mean, but
Nations
which
face
four
off.
nations would you have, right?
Well,
Yeah.
you'd have to have the big three,
Canada, US, yeah.
and you'd have to
Mexico.
have Mexico as well. And then I don't know who.
A
Rest of
world
world,
team,
maybe?
maybe.
Yeah,
Rest of the world
Rest
team.
of the world. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
Maybe.
the Four Nations face
Yeah.
off, I mean, was, great for hockey, great for us Canadians, especially considering the political, landscape right now. And really, All Star games, maybe, or whatever. But congrats to the players once again.
Yeah. Well, guys, we have two super chats that I'm pretty sure you guys can answer. You guys could take turns answering these. Let's hear the music, Bryant. That was the sound of Corey Perry heading over to Crypto.com Stadium. Adam, thank
Enjoy.
you so much. No, thank you. Adam, thank you so much for the $2 super chat. He asks, how are Vancouver's wingbacks?
Well, Vancouver doesn't play with wingbacks anymore because Jesper Sorensen goes with a 4-3-3. Benny Sartini is gone. No more 3.5. So they're fullbacks, but depending on the personnel, one goes up, one stays back. In this case, it would be, let's think last game, Eddie Ocampo, when fully healthy, Eddie Ocampo would go up,
Yeah.
and Tate Johnson would stay back. Young guys, as we mentioned, and of course there's Matthias Laborda as well, who's, he's been known for having hot and cold moments, but this season, there's
There's been
been more
some.
hot than cold moments.
Yeah. He also had to come back from a bit of an injury earlier this season as well, and he's not lost a step. Normally, I would throw Sam Atakube in that as well. A great player, a great ambassador for Canadian football as well. But yeah, you're not going to see him anytime soon, unfortunately.
And guys, we have another super chat. Let's hear the music. There he goes again.
Oh, that's a tough one.
There goes Corey Perry. All right. Adam, thank you so much for the $2 super chat. He asks, guys, do you think Dane St. Clair is overrated? Ooh.
You know what? We didn't say those words, but we had this conversation earlier today when we were talking about Canada, and we were saying the problem with Canada is we don't know who the starting 11 is, and it goes right back to goalkeeper. We don't even know who the starting goalkeeper should be between Crépeau and St. Clair. Oh my gosh, that is a tough question. I want to say no, but I think he still needs to prove himself. I think he is a good goalkeeper. I think he is a young goalkeeper. I think he is going to keep maturing and getting better. He might be one of those guys that was forced into a situation a little bit too soon. I think, oh my gosh, do I say the jury is still out? That's a tough question.
I mean, you said he's a young goalkeeper. He's 28, so he
Yeah,
can't be young
Oh
forever.
my god. Okay, in my mind
28.
he's like
He feels like he's 22, 23, right?
Right? Yeah. Tate Johnson on her team looks like he's 11.
Yeah.
I'm just
I'll
an
answer-
old man now. That's the problem.
Tough. I want to say no as well because in MLS, St. Clair is one of the best goalkeepers in MLS in the league.
Yeah.
Full stop. But yeah, as Nathan said, there's a lot of maturity that needs to happen with him and the rest of the Canadian team. Like there are times where he loses composure. Like in the penalty shootout, he had several chances where he could have made a save against Guatemala. Do I think he starts for Canada at the World Cup if it happened today? No, because we don't know. It just feels like St. Clair is, green for like the big moments. Like with MLS Cup playoffs, like I know he did well in the first round against RSL last year, but they didn't go too far. But like big knockout games on the national
We
side.
killed them, by the way.
Yeah.
LA Galaxy destroyed Minnesota.
I think that's the biggest indictment against him is that whenever he is given the opportunity to really take the reins, he doesn't quite fulfill that promise. He's done
Exactly.
well with Minnesota. I think he is their goalkeeper, but there are big questions about him being the guy for Canada. I just don't know yet.
Yeah, because Max Crepeau has risen to the occasion at the Copa America last
He's
year.
done it before, right? And
Well, by the way, I
not only
think he
that,
really needs to
but
leave
he's
Portland.
risen to the occasion with his respective teams as well. I mean, obviously, it might not be the same with Portland, but Portland's just a weird situation to begin with.
Yeah, as I said, he needs to get out of there.
Yeah.
Well,
That's it.
Anything
guys,
else?
any other parting words, gentlemen? Because we're getting late here.
You know what? It's always fun playing the Galaxy. It's always fun talking to you guys, you, Edgar. And just, yeah, let's have some fun.
Yeah,
I'm
and
sure we'll be talking throughout the game as well.
yeah, it's on the 4th of July of all days.
Right.
Have some good food. I'm barbecued and watch some footy. I'll be eating some good food as well, watching the game, writing. Yeah, it's always fun talking to you guys, talking that you guys know so much about the Galaxy and MLS as a whole. Very knowledgeable guys, and make it fun. And it's been fun talking about the Whitecaps for obvious reasons, and hopefully they get a win on the 4th of July.
Thanks, buddy.
You're welcome, Guy.
Happy birthday. Here's a loss.
Yeah, right. Well, you guys going to put out your socials where people can find you, Nathan, Joshua, Terminal City FC podcast.
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, Terminal City FC podcast, all podcast platforms. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. We go live there, and I put out some shorts. We had one talking about Canada and the World Cup. I mean, not the World Cup, the Gold Cup failure. Check my socials, Joshua00 on Twitter. I'm not calling it X, sorry. Blue Sky, just search up Joshua Ray. Podcast is also on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram as well. Check out Nathan and I's writing for Area 51 Sports Network. We're talking footy. I write a bit about hockey as well. I am doing research on how Jonathan David fits in at Juventus since he's making the big move there, so be on the lookout for that.
I was going to mention that before I left, but yeah, that's exciting, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
For myself and Durek, Twitter, Blue Sky, the same places. And same thing with Area 51 Sports Network and Terminal City. Always find my stuff there, whether it's me ranting or writing.
Well, thank you guys so much. Oh, Adam asked one last question there. He asked, "Do you guys really think that St. Clair deserved to be an All-Star?"
Yeah, given his form in MLS, I would say so.
Nathan?
In the absence of being able to choose anyone else, sure.
Oh my God. Well,
And he's second in clean sheets, so why not?
Minnesota's done well. Oh, I think there are others that you could have chosen.
Yeah.
Well, guys, before we head out of here real quick, I just wanted to ask you, how does it feel for you guys, right? Because I know the Whitecaps have been a beleaguered franchise for ever since joining MLS, and I've seen you guys post this before. Like, I can't believe we went on the Champions Cup run, and I can't believe that we're in first place. It feels weird. Can Galaxy fans are used to or expect some kind of success from their clubs, right? But getting out of this mindset, tell us what the mindset of a Whitecaps fan is, seeing how they're doing this. You kind of touched on it earlier, especially when you're talking about the run to the Champions Cup final. But in general, how does this season feel for you guys? Because a lot of Galaxy fans kind of felt that magic. How does it feel like for you guys?
I think magic.
It feels like a fever dream. That's pretty much the best way to say it. Like, is this really the Vancouver Whitecaps that are playing well? Like, is this real? And then fans are saying, "Oh, we can't get our hopes up too much. We might lose form," but they keep winning. And then, now the expectations are higher. We don't know what to do. And I said it before on my show. Like, are the Whitecaps really in a supporter shield race? 5-10 years ago, this was unimaginable, especially given what the club has gone through on and off the pitch.
I'm old enough that with whatever sports team I follow, whether it's hockey, whether it's soccer, North America or beyond, to have seen the ups and downs. You never stay at just one level. You're great one year, you might not be the next year, or you could be a decade and then all of a sudden you rise back up again. I'm just riding the wave. I'm happy that it's happening. I'm happy that I'm getting to witness it from my standpoint, because I know it might not be here next year, and that's okay. I don't know if it's a pragmatic approach, but it's just a very thoughtful approach, I guess. One that I don't feel like it's not deserved, but I'm happy that I'm being able to experience it as it is happening.
Yeah, you guys sound exactly like Galaxy fans a year ago. Because we had just come off, the whole client out stuff and all the distractions that came with that, and it was just like let's get down to just watching our team go through a rebuild. And as the season wore on, and they started bringing in all these different pieces into the club, you're like, hey, they won a game that they could have lost. Because like I always tell people, playing in BC is not easy, right? And they went up there and they won,
Mhm.
and then they started doing well in other matches. We thought, oh, last year they would have lost this game. Is this really happening? And then you get to the middle of the season, you're like, wow, these guys they're not that bad. And as
Well,
the
that's
season
just
wore
it. You
on,
start to watch and you're starting to think like they're not getting away with it. Like these are deserved wins.
yeah,
So was this always here, or what are the minor little things that have now suddenly clicked? Where do the pieces fit together? Because they have.
yeah. And like you said, you have to enjoy it. You have to ride that wave because you never know how next year is gonna be. And look at us, baby.
Oh, I hope
Just
you're not the premonition.
Yeah,
God.
hopefully it doesn't come to that point.
I've heard this from Matt Baker. I've heard it from Matt Pollard. And I've heard it from Saz and some other people that have been guests on this show that they would they would be like, if we got a cup and somebody told us that the next year you're going to be absolute crap, we would do it in a heartbeat.
Honestly, yeah.
We would too.
Because we've been there. We already know what it feels like.
Yeah, we've been crap for years.
Yeah.
Well, I know that for all of us here at News Across the Galaxy and other Galaxy fans, we wish you guys the best the rest of the season. There you go.
Right
So,
back at you.
gentlemen, this brings us to the end of our show. From me and Bryant and the rest of the News Across the Galaxy crew, we thank you once again for joining us tonight. Nathan, Josh, thank you for coming on with us.
Absolutely.
You guys said
Thanks for having us once again.
Thanks for having us.
it's always
Always a
a
pleasure.
pleasure to have Canadians on the show. Hopefully, we will run into the Caps in the playoffs. Just kidding. It's going to be the 4th of July. So please be very Canadian and take it easy on us. I know what I predicted. I know you guys were very nice. You said only 2-0.
2-0 we'll be happy with.
There you go. Well, as we always say on News Across the Galaxy, keep on nagging. And from me to you to everyone around the world, Wu-Tang for life. Let's go.